Great.
Yes, that's right.
So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Elizabeth, for speaking today. It's great to have you here. So, Elizabeth Long is a leading immigration lawyer in Canada. She's an advocate of immigrant and refugee rights and frequently presents on immigration issues to various organizations. She has testified several times before the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration on various immigration policies. Elizabeth holds 2 different law degrees and a Bachelor of Arts with honors in psychology. Elizabeth has been certified by the Law Society of Ontario as a specialist in citizenship and immigration law as well, and only around 50 lawyers in Canada have this title. Wow, that's quite an achievement. So thank you again for speaking today, Elizabeth, and good luck with your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for the intro, Alex. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the session. So, one of the most common questions I have from people who want to come to Canada is, I don't have enough points for express entry. What do I do? So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to go through some pointers that I have if you want to come to immigrate to Canada, and somehow the points for express entry are just not enough. Before I go into my points, let me just give you a little bit of a background about the points and how express entry works. So the express entry system in a nutshell goes like this. First, you have to create an online profile, and you can qualify to get a profile under 3 different categories: the Federal Skilled Worker class, Canadian Experience class, and the Federal Skilled Trades class. If you are coming from outside of the country, you will likely apply under the Federal Skilled Worker class. And to qualify, you need at least 1 year of high-skilled work experience that is continuous, full-time, and in one occupation. And then we also look at other background factors. You have to have an IELTS of 6.0 in your English for every single category. And you have to have some settlement funds, around $13,000 for one person, and maybe adding more family members, you'll add $3,000 or $4,000 for each family member. So those are some of the basics to just get into the pool if you're coming from outside of the country. Once you're able to create a profile, okay, then you're going to be able to get into the express entry pool. And just because you get into the pool, it doesn't mean that you have applied. A lot of people say, I've applied for express entry, but they're only in the pool. They haven't actually submitted an application yet. That's not counted as applied. Once you are in the pool, you just show that you're interested in applying, okay? And you will get a series of points. And this is what we're going to concentrate on today, is how to get those points up, or alternatives if you just can't get those points up, okay? But you'll get a series of points based on your background, and if you have provincial nomination of a program that is express entry based, okay? And that's going to be based on your background. So it's called the CRS system. And so you'll have your score. Now, every 2 weeks or so, the government will have a draw where they announce a cutoff number. If your score is above that number, then you should receive an invitation to apply. If your score is below that number, you stay in the pool. So, you can stay in the pool for 1 year and then your profile will expire. So the trick is not just to get into the pool. The trick is to make sure that you have enough points that you can actually get out of the pool, get that invitation to apply, and submit your application. So let's just take, for example, right? We have 4 people in the pool. If the last draw was 469, who's going to get selected? Well, Troop T is going to get selected. So sometimes the immigration, they've selected on which category that you fall under when you're in the pool. But for the most part, they just invite everybody in the pool who is above a certain number. Okay. Now, people often ask me, well, Elizabeth, do you think the numbers are going to go down or not? Sometimes it's hard to say exactly. For example, in the beginning of the pandemic, March to June, the government was only inviting people under certain categories, like the Canadian experience class, people who have work experience in Canada. So the points were going down for that category. But then later on, when they invited everybody else, the points went up to around the 470s, which is what they've been for the past couple of years. And you know, it really depends on who is in the pool when you're looking at how, you know, what the numbers will be. So if there's a lot of people, and right now we have a lot of people who want to come to Canada, the points are going to, you know, stay at that level or go up. If there's less people applying, then it could go down. So where do your points come from? So here's how the points work, okay? First of all, age. Once you reach your 30th birthday, it's no longer a happy birthday. When you reach your 30th birthday, every year that you turn older, your points will drop by 5 or 6 points. By the time you get to your 40s, it's going to be a fast slide, 10, 11 points. By the time you get to your 45th birthday, the good news is it doesn't go down anymore. The bad news is it's 0. So compared to someone in their 20s who have 100 or 110 points, that's a significant drop. Not a lot you can do about age except apply as early as possible. Education is very important. If you do not have a work experience in Canada, you will need right now to have at least 2 degrees, one of which is over 3 years program or more, two post-secondary programs that you've completed, okay? Language we are, and I'm going to be talking about, but you do need, it's a very, very big dividing factor, and you do need to score quite high on your language exams right now. The relevant Canadian work experience. So the work experience that is counted is work experience in Canada that is at least 1 year within the last 3 years of high skilled, and it has to be at least 30 hours a week overall, so 1,560 hours. And it has to be when you are employed in Canada, and it can't be while you are a full-time student. Foreign work experience will count. It's sort of looked at in conjunction with your language as well. So that's why language also figures into this as well. Your spouse, it depends on their levels for education, language, and Canadian work experience. If they have very high education or language points, they could add a little bit to you. Otherwise, sometimes they might even take away a few points from someone who's single. Provincial nominee programs. Provincial nominee programs are programs where every province has set their own program. So normally immigration is federal jurisdiction. The federal government is responsible for immigration, but the federal government has made an agreement with every province to allow them to select people that they want to select. And we're going to talk about some provincial nominee programs that are express entry linked. So with these express entry linked provincial nominee program, not every program will give you 600 points, but if you are able to get nominated under an express entry linked provincial nominee program, then you can get 600 points added to your application, to your score, which means that for sure you will be selected and receive your invitation to apply. Previous study in Canada will give you 15 points for 1 to 2 year program, or 30 points if it's a master's or PhD, or if it's a 3-year program in Canada. Arranged employment, and we're going to be speaking about that. It's not, so you'll have to either have a LMIA, and you can get 50 points for that, or if you have an employer-specific work permit. So the post-grad work permits that are open work permits, they're not going to allow you to do that. It has to be employer-specific work permits, and if you don't have an LMIA, you'll need 1 year of work experience in that position, and you need to show that you have at least 2 years on your contract to work further in Canada. If you have siblings who are Canadian permanent residents in Canada, you get a few points there, 15 points. And the ability to speak fluent French, you will get a whole lot of points, and we're going to talk about that more. Okay, and finally, trade certification. This is for people in the trades who are able to get trade certification in Ontario, or sorry, in the various provinces that they are going to be working at. Okay, so let's talk about some pointers. If you're looking at your points and you're saying, ugh, it's way below the 470s, I don't think I have a chance to get through. One of the key things that I emphasize to people is you have to study for your language exams. The language exams are set up in a certain way that they test your reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and every single one of those skills is key in order to be able to get the points for express entry. Okay, and so even if the language is your first language, these exams are not that easy. They're very long and tedious, and they have special things that they're testing for and special things that they're looking for. So you really, really should study for your language exams and understand what you're getting yourself into. Okay, in order to get, especially if you're outside of Canada and you don't have any work experience in Canada, my recommendation is to, you have to have at least achieved this level for every single one of your skills. So if you're doing your IELTS, it has to be 7 in reading, writing, and speaking, and 8 in listening. If you get a 6.5 in writing, for example, your points would drop dramatically. It would, like, I'm talking about 40, 50, 60 points, okay? The CELPIP will be 9 in every single category. Now, if you can have ability in French, if you're French, you're fluent in French, and we're talking about CLB 7 in French in every category. So if you look at the English level, that's a CLB 9. Okay, that level. If you're looking at a French, you're CLB 7. CLB 7 is equivalent in IELTS to a 6 in each category. Okay, if you can achieve that, you will get 62 points extra for the your express entry. They just increased the points for French by a lot. Okay, so from 30 to 50, and then you have extra points for second language. So overall, this is very key. So if you have that ability in French, or you think, you know what, I have done it before, I do need to study a little bit, it might just be worth your while to study for that. Okay, so number 4, this is a category that I want to, this is a pointer that I want to speak with you with caution, okay? Because just because somebody says, hey, you know, I can get you a job offer, it doesn't mean that A, it's a real job offer, and B, that you can get a work permit based on it, okay? But there are certain situations where some people have a lot of specialized skills that Canadian headhunters are looking for, or if you have you know someone who really wants to hire you, this is a very key first step if you are able to obtain a work permit. And I'm going to go through some of the easier ways to obtain a work permit. Normally what happens is a person has to, an employer in Canada has to apply for a labor market impact assessment with the labor department before you can apply for a work permit. So normally the employer would have to advertise in Canada, show that they can find a Canadian who can do the job before they make you that offer. Unless you're in a very specialized situation, the employers may not be willing to do that if you're just applying for a job in Canada. Or even if they're willing to, they may not be able to convince an officer that this is the case. But here are some of the exceptions to the rule. So this, the free trade agreement professionals, with this one, the employer does not have to apply for a labor market impact assessment, an LMIA. Okay, they are LMIA exempt. And so what happens is, if you are a national of these countries, Peru, you can actually be a permanent resident in Peru, and you fall on, you have work experience, or the education. Every free trade agreement has different rules, different professionals. But if you are, for example, a popular one is engineers, right? There are a lot of engineers that are allowed if you have a job offer as an engineer in Canada. Then we can get you a work permit just by applying straight for a work permit. And if you don't need a visa to come to Canada, now outside of pandemic times when the borders are open, you can just even fly into Canada and apply for your work permit at the border. For example, if you're a Mexican citizen and you have a job offer as a computer systems analyst, then under the old NAFTA, now it's called CUSMA, free trade agreement, we can give you a package, and you go to the airport. When you come to the Canadian airport, you go to the officer and say, I'd like to apply for my work permit, and they will give you the work permit at that point. So it can be a very, very fast situation depending on your nationality, depending on your job offer in Canada. The second one that I can speak to it's called the Global Talent Stream. Now, this one is especially used for tech workers. So companies, if they want to hire tech workers, right now we do have a high shortage of tech workers in Canada. They, instead of going through the normal LMIA where they have to try to recruit Canadians, etc., they bypass the recruitment stage. And they have to show that they are going to provide benefits to Canadians by hiring you, like hiring more Canadians, or training Canadians, etc. But especially if you are your occupation falls under one of the listed occupations there, they can get you. Global Talent Stream is a form of LMIA, but it's recruitment exempt, and they can get you an LMIA within 2 weeks, and then you can apply for a work permit as well. Okay, so this is an expedited way for companies to hire, especially tech workers. There are other workers that, if you have at least 5 years of work experience and you're highly specialized, that the companies may be able to hire you as well under this category, but it's mainly used for tech workers. The third one is if you have a job offer from a family to take care of their children, their elderly persons, or disabled persons in Canada, and you have you can pass the English level of 5, and you have a post-secondary degree of at least 1 year, then you can apply for a work permit under the caregiver program. Right now, it's closed this year. They filled the quota for the children, but it's still open for the elderly and disabled persons, and next year it probably open up again. So that's something as well if you're interested in working in that capacity. There are also other, programs from, there's the Atlantic Immigrant Nominee Program and the Rural and Northern Immigrant Program. So basically, these programs are programs where employers from more rural places and also in the Atlantic provinces, that they could also be willing to, if they are willing to hire you, they don't have to go through an LMIA. There's another process that they go to, and they can also, you can also apply for permanent residence there. There's also something called the International Experience Class. Now, this is something where if you have if you're from a national of certain countries, a lot of the Western countries, and then there's also Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, and there's Chile as well. So different countries, and if you're under the age of 30 or 35, you could apply for an open work permit to come to Canada to work for a year or two. And, you know, when you do so, when you have a work permit, it will give you points if you work in Canada in high-skilled positions. The caregiver program itself and the AINP, RNIP, they do have some low-skilled jobs, and those are outside of the express entry. They are permanent residence applications on their own, okay? But the other ones, if you have work experience in Canada, that will also give you points towards permanent residence as well. There's a lot of other avenues for work permits. I don't have time to talk about it here, but some things like intra-company transferee category, where your company would transfer you to a subsidiary in Canada. There are other things like provincial nominee programs. If you're nominated, if you have the job offer, you can get a work permit, etc. Whole host. I mean, there's hundreds of different kinds of work permits. And if you have, you know, specific situations, I'd be happy to speak with you afterwards about this. The third thing that I wanted to, number 3, is provincial nominee programs that are express entry linked. Now, provincial nominee programs, they're province-based, and they really do try to emphasize, for the most part, on nominating people who have links to who have links to the province. So mostly they like, you know, people who have job offers, or people who have studied in the province and have job offers, etc. So it's for the most part, the provinces, they don't want to just invite someone who has no connection yet to the province. There are 3 programs right now that have a possibility, and they're very much occupation-based. The first one, for Ontario, they have something called the Human Capital Stream, where you can't just apply directly to them. You have to be in the pool, and they comb through the pool and see if they like you. And the Human Capital Stream is something where they identified, they like tech occupations, so there's a list of tech occupations, and they will, every, you know, once in a while, they'll have a draw for the tech draws. And so if your score still has to be at a certain level, maybe 450s or above. And then, I mean, it varies, the numbers for what it is for the draw. And you have work experience in that occupation, one of the occupations, then they will invite you to apply with them. Sometimes they invite people of other occupations as well that they've identified. They don't announce beforehand which one. And they also may have other things. Sometimes they have before invited people who have job offers, etc. Okay, so if you are invited to apply with them and you apply with them and you get the nomination, you will get 600 points. For the second one is the French-speaking one. So for people who have the CLB level of 7 in French in all of their different categories, and you have a certain level for a fairly good level in English, they might also invite you to apply, especially if you have the a certain level for your express entry. Now, you may or may not need those points, but if you do need those points, then you might have a chance to also get 600 points and be invited with that. For both of these categories, they will require you to have at least a bachelor's degree. The second one is the Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan has an express entry and an in-demand category that is also very much occupation-based. They will invite people of certain occupations to apply with them, but they have their own scoring system, that is outside of express entry. And there is a huge emphasis on work experience. So if you have 9 or 10 years of work experience in the occupation that they have drawn, then you may have ability to apply with them. Of course, they also look at your language points, your education, your age, etc. as well. The third one is Nova Scotia In Demand. Nova Scotia In Demand, they have some occupations that they have said that it's in demand, but it opens and closes really, really fast, and it's not done very often. But that is a possibility if you are in one of the occupations in demand. Okay. All right. The second, number 2, what I would recommend is if you are at all entrepreneurial and you have the capital, to think about entrepreneur programs. So one of the most popular programs that we work with is called the Startup Visa. The Startup Visa is something where if you and up to 5 founders in total, so it doesn't have to be 5, it could be just 1, but up to 5 people in total can start an innovative company in Canada that, as long as it receives support from a designated organization, such as an angel investor group, an incubator or venture capital group, that they can then apply for directly for permanent residence. This is nothing to do with express entry. It's a separate program. Okay. Now there are a lot of different things that they have to do to get there. Each person has to take on a management role of the company and pass the English level of 5, CLB 5. But the main thing is that you would have to get a letter of support from, you have to have an angel investor that is willing to invest at least $75,000 into your company, or a VC that's willing to invest $200,000 or be accepted into incubator. And all of these groups are, it's not just any group in Canada. They're all on a list designated by the immigration group. If you're interested in that, we can certainly help you and take a look at what you have and see if you might be able to come to Canada under this category. The other thing that I often do with people who have companies, who already have run companies outside of Canada and are interested in starting a branch or subsidiary or related company in Canada, is to apply for a work permit for them under the intra-company transferee category. So for intra-company transferee category, we can transfer senior or executive managers or specialized knowledge workers from a related company outside of Canada to come to Canada inside Canada. And these work permits, if you are an executive manager, you will get 200 points for express entry after working in the position for at least 1 year. For other workers, senior managers, or specialized knowledge workers, it would be 50 points. So these work permits work in conjunction with express entry to get you the points for express entry for permanent residence. LMIA owner-operator. This is where you yourself are going to own and operate a company in Canada, and you have to show that the business is in business and it's going to run, and that you own at least majority shares of the business, and you will create jobs for Canadians. And we can get an LMIA based on your ownership of the company and the business, and that will give you either 50 points for normal workers or 200 points for executive management positions for express entry. There are also a lot of provincial nominee entrepreneur categories. I generally use that as a last resort because they do take a very, very long time and there is a lot of risk because you have to prove that your company, after you run it for a year and a half or so, meets all of the standards that you had proposed that you would do. But it is an option, especially for people who don't qualify under other categories, to go through. Finally, the last one, and I think we're almost out of time, is study in Canada. So you have points for express entry for studying in Canada, but most important is the postgrad work permit. That's the work permit that you will get once you graduate from a public university or college, not a private one, public. And it depends on the length of time of your program in order to get the work permit, okay? How long your work permit will be. This open work permit is key to a lot of people being able to work in Canada and get the work experience points that is going to help you get express entry. And it will also open up possibilities for other permanent residence programs where you have job offers. Remember, job offers, the real job offers come when you can actually work for the employer. And having an open work permit is key for your ability to find a job in Canada. And there are programs outside of express entry that are open to people who have job offers in Canada. Okay, so the next steps, what I would suggest you do is have a plan to know what you need to do for your immigration goals. Okay, then secondly, just do what you need to do to get there. Okay, whether studying, practicing for IELTS, thinking about business, but it relates to knowing what you need to do and then doing what you need to do. Very, very important. Do not misrepresent. There are many fraudsters out there who will say, give me so much money, I'll give you a job offer. This is not going to be a real job offer. And if it's not a real job offer and you misrepresent on anything in your applications, you will get a ban of 5 years from ever applying, and your credibility will be shot, okay? And also, even if you do get your status, you can have your status stripped away. There are people who lose their citizenship status afterwards when immigration finds out that they had lied on their applications before. So make sure you do not be tempted to misrepresent, and stay in status if you're in Canada, okay? There are many things that you will need to do if you're just a student or worker in Canada that you could lose your status. Make sure you understand the rules to stay in status. If your application is rejected, you have to contact a lawyer right away. There are very strict federal court notice filings, deadlines. It's 60 days from the date of rejection if it's outside of Canada, and 15 days if it's applications filed inside of Canada, okay? And also, if you just think, oh, I'm just gonna write a letter to IRCC and they'll fix it, be very careful about that, because if you don't know what to write and you write it there and then you go to a lawyer and say, hey, now can you fix it? They rejected my letter. IRCC will not consider us the second reconsideration. They only consider one reconsideration. Okay, so key, talk to a lawyer if your application is rejected. Hopefully you will have hired a lawyer long before and your application will not be rejected. That's why you have a plan. You actually hire a lawyer to get there. Everything's successful. That's what we're hoping, okay? So here's my information. What I tell you today, it's true today, but immigration laws in Canada change so much that it very well will change in the next while. So we do have a link here to sign up for a newsletter, and we send out information about changes in immigration law. So feel free to sign up for a newsletter here, okay? And we'll share our slides with you as well afterwards. Oops. All right, so I think that's it for me today. I think our time is up. So thank you so much for joining us. Alex, are you there?
Hi, Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yes. There we go.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Thanks for speaking. It was great. I was watching the whole thing. And I see there's a few questions here, or just one. Did you want to answer that really quickly? Or
Oh, sure. Let's take a look here.
question is from Maria Bertero. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. So international students from overseas can appeal a negative decision. Thank you so much. Oh, I think maybe she was just commenting on something you had mentioned.
Okay, so with regard to negative decisions, okay, like I said, there are 15 days when you have to file notice from the time if you have applied for something inside Canada, it's 15 days from the date of the negative decision that you have to actually file it with the federal court. Now, whether or not you will succeed at the federal court, it will depend on the situation. But you can go to the court, but you will have only 15 days to file the notice. So that's why make sure you speak to a lawyer right away if you have a negative decision.
Okay, awesome. So that looks like it was the only question there. And I know you brought up your contact information, but do you want to just go ahead and put your email address or maybe your website in the chat here?
Yes,
so people can...
Sure. So if you have any, I'm just, it inquires at lmlawgroup.com is our email, and you can call us at 416-548-9101 for our phone number. And Alex, are we able to send out slides to everyone who attended at all?
Yeah, I can send you a list after the event, or Jesse can as well, of the people who are in your session, and if you can feel free to send them a slides list to that as well.
Okay, wonderful.
I was just going to say, so it looks like there was just one more question from Maria, if you want to cover that quickly, and then we'll finish up. So what about international students overseas?
International students overseas can also do it. It's 60 days from the date of the negative decision. But what I would caution as well is to take a look at why the application was rejected. So one of the things is, when you get a rejection, you'll get a letter, but it's a standard letter. It will sometimes just have a check mark saying, oh, I don't believe this person will leave Canada when they're supposed to. This is not the actual reasons. The actual reasons are contained in the notes of your case. So one of the things is, if we go to court, the court will mandate the immigration visa post to give the actual reasons in the notes. And that's very important. And sometimes once we see the actual reasons, we might not decide to go ahead with the, it's called judicial review. We might say, okay, you know what? We're going to resubmit the application and put in a better application. And so if you've gone past the time of the judicial review notice period, what I often do is I can apply for the notes of the case under another process called ATIP. And we get the notes, we take a look at the reasons, and we might submit a better application dealing with the concerns of the officers there.
Okay, great. So I think that answers that question. Thank you again for speaking. It was a really great presentation. And just to let everyone know, so the next round of sessions has started. It started about 10 o'clock, I believe. So if you just click on the sessions tab, you'll be able to join the next session. And at 10:30 as well, we have our immigration lawyers panel coming up. Thank you again, Elizabeth, for speaking. It was a great presentation.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.